You are going to spend an entire work week on your knees pulling weeds this year. Same weeds, same beds, back in 2 weeks. That is not your fault. It is what happens when you have been sold the wrong strategy for decades. Spray, pull, mulch, repeat, forever. After 40 years of gardening, I will tell you the truth. Nobody selling herbicide wants you to hear. You're not supposed to fight weeds. You are supposed to crowd them out with a living carpet so dense a weed seed cannot find bare soil. 9 ground covers do exactly that. Number 3 is the safest sun slope solution nothing beats. Number 9 finally works under a mature tree where you gave up growing anything. And 3 plants nearly every video like this recommends are quietly invasive across the American Southeast. I will tell you which. Number 9, Pennsylvania sedge, the dry shade solution nobody talks about. Every American gardener has the same impossible spot, the dry shade under a mature oak, maple, or spruce where nothing grows because the tree roots have taken every drop of moisture out of the soil. Grass dies there. Hostas struggle there. Wild ginger, which every ground cover video recommends for that spot, actually cannot survive there because it wants consistent moisture and the tree roots will not allow it. Pennsylvania sedge is the plant that works. Native to eastern North America, hardy in zones 3 through 8, it grows in a soft, fine-textured 12 to 18-inch mound that reads like a meadow grass under the tree. It handles bone-dry conditions once established. It handles deep shade. It handles root competition, and it forms a dense enough mat that weed seeds cannot get through it. The visual. Pennsylvania sedge looks like a soft, green-gold flowing mane in shade. Give it 3 years, and it fills in as a continuous carpet. Mow it once a year in early spring to about 3 inches. The sedge comes back thicker every year, and the annual mow is the only maintenance. The extension recommendation, nobody applies. Prairie Nursery in Wisconsin and Mancuba Center in Delaware both list Pennsylvania sedge as their #1 native ground cover for dry shade. Every landscape architect specifies it now, yet the recommendation almost never appears in the copycat ground cover videos because those videos are still pushing wild ginger, a plant that requires moisture. The dry shade will never provide. If you have that terrible dry shade spot under a mature tree in the front yard that you have given up on, this is the plant. Plant 1 plug per square foot at 12-inch spacing in early fall. Water for the first season, then leave it alone. 3 years to full coverage, 40 years of no weeding after. One thing before I move on. Every plant on this list follows the same 3 rules for density, establishment, and edging. I lay them out in full before number 1. For now, know this: plant thick, not sparse. That single decision decides whether a ground cover ever closes. Number 8. Allegheny spurge, the native pachysandra you have never heard of. If you have driven past a suburban American house built between 1970 and 2010, you have seen Japanese pachysandra planted as evergreen ground cover under trees and along the north side of the house. It is the dark green mat every suburban gardener bought for decades. What almost no gardener knows is that Japanese pachysandra is classified as invasive in 15 or more American states, escapes into wild woodlands, and displaces native trilliums and spring ephemerals. The alternative that solves the problem is a plant called Allegheny spurge, native to the American Southeast, better looking than the Japanese cousin. Well-behaved and non-invasive, and almost nobody sells it because the Japanese version has dominated the market for 50 years. Allegheny spurge grows in zones 5 through 9 in dappled to deep shade, forming a 9 to 12-inch mat of gorgeous silver marbled foliage that is prettier than any Japanese pachysandra you have ever seen. It produces small, fragrant flower spikes in early spring, a feature the Japanese species does not offer. And it stays where you plant it. No escape into the neighboring woods, no smothering of the trillium patch you have been protecting for 20 years. The catch is availability. Allegheny spurge is not on the shelf at the big box garden center. You order it from a specialty native plant nursery in early spring, Prairie Nursery, Prairie Moon, Isle Native Plants, or a State Native Plant Society plant sale. The plants arrive small and slow to establish, but by year 3, you have a native ground cover in your shade bed that no chain garden center could sell you. I picked up my first tray of Allegheny spurge at a Native Plant Society sale somewhere around 2012, maybe 13. I would have to check the ledger. The plants arrived so small, I thought I had wasted $28. 3 years later, I had the prettiest silver marbled shade carpet under the maples, and nobody who walked through the garden could tell me what it was. Plant 3 plants per square foot at 4 to 6 inch spacing. Full closure in 3 years. 0 weeding after that. Number 7, sweet woodruff, the fragrant shade dweller. Sweet woodruff, Gallium odoratum, is the delicate light green ground cover you can grow in moist shade under trees, along the shady side of a walkway, or under hostas and hellebores. Small white star-shaped flowers open in mid-spring. The foliage releases a distinctive fresh hay fragrance when brushed or crushed. Zones 4 through 8, moist to lightly damp shade, ideally under a canopy, forms a 5 to 8 inch light green carpet in one season, spreads by underground rhizomes fast enough that most gardeners spade edge the perimeter once a year to keep it in bounds. The pairing that works. Combine sweet woodruff with hostas or with Allegheny spurge from number 8. The 2 ground covers layer at different heights, sweet woodruff at 5 inches, spurge at 9 to 12, and between them you have a dense continuous shade carpet nothing can weed through. The regional caution. In cool, moist parts of the American Northwest, particularly western Oregon, sweet woodruff can spread aggressively enough to be flagged as invasive. If you garden in Oregon or coastal Washington, plant it in a contained bed or skip it. Everywhere else east of the Cascades, it is a well-behaved ground cover that solves shade beds beautifully. The fragrance is the reason to plant it near a walkway or the shady side of a porch. Walk past on a warm May afternoon and the hay-sweet scent stops you. Stop me right here for a second. I want to hear which spot is beating you this year, the sunny slope, the shaded corner, or the strip along the driveway. Drop it in the comments with your U.S. state. Number 6, golden ragwort. The native replacement for periwinkle nobody mentions. For 70 years, every gardening magazine and every ground cover video has recommended Vinca minor periwinkle as the go-to evergreen ground cover for slopes, shade, and difficult spots. What almost no gardener knows is that periwinkle is classified as actively invasive across the entire American Southeast, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, Virginia, Tennessee, Kentucky. It escapes into wild woodlands, forms monoculture mats that displace native wildflowers, and is on the Southeast Exotic Pest Plant Council's official invasive species list. The native replacement that does everything Vinca does without the invasion is golden ragwort. Botanical name Pacara aurea, native across the eastern United States from Ontario to Florida. Semi-evergreen, forms a dense weed-suppressing mat about 12 inches tall. Bright yellow flower clusters in mid-spring on 12 to 18-inch stems that light up the shade like nothing else, spreads at a controlled rate through underground rhizomes, enough to fill in a bed in 3 years, not aggressively enough to escape into your neighbor's yard. Zones 3 through 8, sun to full shade, wet to average soil. Golden ragwort is one of the most adaptable native perennials in the entire American plant palette, and almost no home gardener has heard of it because the nursery trade has kept promoting Vinca for decades. Plant plugs at 18-inch spacing in fall or early spring. Solid mat by year 2. If you have Vinca growing in your yard right now, dig it up over one season and replace with golden ragwort, not tomorrow, but over the next 2 summers. Your local wildflowers will thank you. I put golden ragwort in for the first time somewhere around 2014, could have been 2015, on a north-facing slope where the Vinca I planted in the 80s had turned into a monoculture I could not stop. 2 seasons, and the ragwort held the slope. 12 years later, that slope has not been weeded once, and every May the whole thing lights up yellow. Number 5, Ajuga chocolate chip, the controlled version of a vigorous plant. Regular Ajuga reptans, bugleweed, is the standard fast-spreading shade ground cover most gardeners already know. Blue flower spikes in late spring, spreading rosettes of foliage that fill in a shade bed within 2 seasons. The problem with standard Ajuga is that it escapes into the lawn if there is no hard edge between the bed and the grass, and it has been flagged as invasive in Maryland, Oregon, and West Virginia. The cultivar solution is Ajuga chocolate chip, smaller than the standard species, slower spreading, contained, still a solid mat of coppery bronze foliage with blue flower spikes. And because it does not spread as aggressively, it stays in the bed you put it in. Zones 3 through 9, part sun to full shade, prefers moist soil but tolerates dry once established. Full closure in 1 to 2 seasons at standard density. The lawn barrier caveat. Even chocolate chip will migrate into an adjacent lawn if there is no barrier. Install a metal or plastic edging strip 4 inches deep at the bed boundary, or plan on hard edging the boundary twice a year with a half-moon edger. Do not skip this step, or you will have Ajuga in your lawn within 3 years. Other contained cultivars worth naming. Ajuga Burgundy Glow has tricolor pink and cream foliage that lights up a shade bed. Ajuga Black Scallop has the deepest black-purple leaves you can grow in shade. Both are visually stronger than standard bugleweed and less prone to lawn escape than the species. Quick word before number 4. There is more practical perennial garden design than fits in any one video. I gathered 40 years of it into a book at henrysgardensecrets.com. The book is the long version. I will not bring it up again. Now to number 4. Sedum, the zero-water sun ground cover. Any sunny slope in your yard where nothing wants to grow, the strip along the driveway that gets full afternoon sun, the sun-baked bed on the south side of the house, the septic mound that cannot be watered, Sedum is the plant for that spot. Zero water needed after the first season. Zero fertilizer, full sun, poor soil. The worse the conditions, the better Sedum thrives. Zones 3 through 9. Creeping sedum varieties, the ones that spread as ground cover, form a 2 to 6 inch succulent mat that stores its own water in fleshy leaves. Cultivars I trust. Sedum spurium dragon's blood, deep red foliage that intensifies in cool weather. Sedum angelina, chartreuse to golden foliage that turns orange in fall. Sedum kamchaticum, bright yellow flowers on a low creeping mat. Sedum album, tiny white flowers on a fine textured green carpet. All safe cultivars, none invasive. Plant 4 plugs per square foot for fast coverage. Water for the first season while roots establish. After that, nothing. No supplemental water, no fertilizer, no mulch. The sedum takes care of itself. The one warning: Sedum acre, the species, has been flagged as an aggressive spreader in some cool, moist regions of the country. Stick with the named cultivars I mentioned above rather than the species Sedum acre if you are unsure. Use sedum on driveway strips, gravel garden edges, sunny hillsides, low waterbeds, rock gardens, roofs. Any spot where nothing else works, that is exactly the spot sedum wants to be. Number 3. Creeping phlox, the safest sunslope solution nothing beats. Here is number 3. The safe sunslope replacement for creeping jenny that every other ground cover video wrongly recommends. Creeping jenny, Lysomachia nummularia, is banned in Massachusetts, Connecticut, and Wisconsin, regulated in New Hampshire and Delaware, classified as very high-impact invasive in New York. It escapes into wetlands and forms a monoculture that displaces native wet meadow plants. It is not a plant to recommend for a sunslope bed, no matter how fast it spreads. Creeping phlox is the safe alternative that does everything creeping jenny promises and more. Native to eastern North America, hardy zones 3 through 9, forms a dense evergreen mat about 4 inches tall that spills over a slope, wall edge, or rock face in waves of solid color. Blooms hard from April through May in shades of pink, lavender, blue, white, or magenta, a spring show almost no other ground cover matches. And after the bloom ends, the fine-textured evergreen foliage keeps the slope covered and the weeds smothered for the rest of the year. Zones 3 through 9, full sun, poor to average soil. The worse the drainage, the better creeping phlox performs. It evolved on rocky ledges and dry hillsides. Full coverage in 2 seasons at standard density, the cultivar shortlist. Emerald blue is the standard reliable blue. Candy stripe is the pink and white bicolor. Fort Hill is the deep magenta pink. Snowflake is the pure white. All hardy across the American continental range. The slope trick. Creeping phlox handles sun-baked slopes where grass will not grow. On a hillside where you have been mowing awkwardly for years or fighting weeds constantly. 3 plugs per square foot in September becomes a full evergreen slope in 18 months. And you never mow it. Once a year in July, after bloom finishes, Shear the whole plant back by 1/3 with head shears to keep it dense. Somewhere around 2010, I converted a sun-baked slope beside my Ohio driveway from grass I could never keep alive to creeping phlox at 3 plugs per square foot. That slope has not been mowed, weeded, or watered in 15 years. Spring bloom every year. Nothing else on this list solves that problem as cleanly. Number 2. Creeping thyme, the walkable herb carpet. Creeping thyme is the ground cover you can walk on. Between stepping stones, along a garden path, in the driest, sunniest spot in the yard, creeping thyme handles foot traffic that would kill almost every other plant on this list. It also releases a soft herbal scent when stepped on. Zones 4 through 9, full sun, poor, sandy, well-drained soil is what it wants. Creeping thyme rots in rich amended soil or wet clay. This is the plant that thrives on neglect. Do not fertilize. Do not water after the first season. The worse you treat it, the tighter the mat gets. The cultivar short list I recommend: Thymus Magic Carpet, the fastest establishing thyme with reliable magenta bloom. Thymus Pink Chintz, soft salmon pink flowers, spreads quickly. Thymus Serpillum Elfin, the tightest, slowest miniature form, best for between stepping stones. Thymus Praecox coccineus, deep red-pink bloom, spreads reliably. First bloom the second summer, full carpet by year 3. The one thing creeping thyme does not do: it does not spread by underground rhizomes the way Ajuga or Sedum do. Each plug stays where you plant it and slowly widens outward. That means for creeping thyme specifically, you plant denser than the standard rule, 6 per square foot, in a heavy weed area, never fewer than 3. Plant sparsely, and you will still be weeding between the thyme plugs 3 years later. The scent trick: plant creeping thyme along the path from the driveway to the front door. Every visitor who walks that path releases the herbal fragrance under their feet. The garden reads as intentional and welcoming from the first step onto the walkway. Before the last one, tap the like button if you have written down at least 2 of these plants to try next season. Nothing more. That single signal is what tells YouTube this is actually solving the problem for gardeners. Now, the 3 rules that decide whether these plants actually choke out weeds or whether they just grow next to them for 2 years while you keep pulling. Get these wrong, and any plant on this list will disappoint you. The 3 rules that decide everything. Rule 1. Density: 4 plugs per square foot at 6-inch spacing. Not 1, not 2, 4. Density is what closes the mat before the weed seeds can find bare soil. Plant sparsely, and you spend 2 years pulling weeds through the gaps waiting for the mat to close. Plant densely, and it closes in 1 season. Rule 2. The establishment window: 2 to 3 growing seasons for full closure, not 3 to 6 months. Every ground cover video that promises instant weed suppression is lying. Year 1 looks sparse. Year 2, the plants touch and fill invisible gaps. Year 3, the mat is dense enough to suppress weed germination. Mulch the bare gaps in year 1 with 2 inches of shredded bark mulch to hold the moisture and suppress weed seeds while the ground cover establishes. The mulch decomposes and disappears exactly as the ground cover takes over. Perfect handoff. Rule 3. Edge twice a year, nothing else. An established ground cover mat does not need weeding in the middle. The density prevents germination. What it needs is a clean cut at the perimeter twice a year with a half-moon edger, once in early spring, once in early fall. That single 15-minute per bed maintenance step is the entire work of an established ground cover garden. No pulling, no spraying, no mulching. Edge twice a year and stop. Get these 3 rules wrong, and any plant on this list disappoints. Get them right, and you never weed the interior of the bed again. Number 1. White clover, the plant your grandmother's lawn had that you have been trained to pull. I went back and forth on whether white clover deserved the top slot on a ground cover list. It is technically a lawn plant, but it does 2 things nothing else does, and it comes with a story every gardener over 60 needs to hear. Trifolium repens, zones 3 through 10, fixes nitrogen from air into soil at 60 to 80% of what a lawn needs, chokes weeds dense, feeds bees 8 weeks each summer. Until 1950, white clover was a premium ingredient in every American lawn seed mix. Then 2,4-D came to market and killed clover. The herbicide industry ran a decades-long campaign redefining clover as a weed so homeowners would buy the chemical that killed it. 60 years later, most gardeners pull the free nitrogen out of their yards and buy fertilizer to replace it. My grandmother's Ohio front lawn was white clover through the mid-50s. She never fertilized. After she died, my aunt sprayed it with 2,4-D. By 1975, the ads had convinced her clover was the enemy. That lawn has needed fertilizer every year since, overseed at 2 to 4 ounces per 1,000 square feet into existing lawn. Full coverage in 8 to 12 weeks, then you stop fertilizing forever. 9 ground covers, 3 rules, 1 shift in mindset, you stop fighting weeds and start crowding them out. If you are only going to try one this fall, try number 9, Pennsylvania sedge. Under a mature tree, solves the impossible dry shade spot every gardener has and every video ignores. Drop your worst weed spot and your U.S. state in the comments. I will tell you which of these 9 dissolves it fastest. Plant once, weed never.